This is AJ from Sports Hub Media with San Jose Sharks media legend Brodie Brazil.
I'm
Getting
sorry.
you?
Did you just say legend? Is that how
Yes,
we're
I said.
starting?
Yeah, I'm starting with a legend.
Thank you,
Get-
by the way.
You're welcome. Getting you on the show is a big deal to me, not only because I'm a fan, but also I see a lot of similarities between us. You grew up in the Bay Area. Your big break was covering high school sports. You were making videos as a kid, which so I'm sure you would have been on YouTube if it was around back then.
So true. So true. Sorry. I'm only laughing because everything you said is spot on. You can keep going, though.
Okay. Um, so tell me, how did your love for sports and broadcasting, and when I say broadcasting, I mean like pre and post game shows begin?
Well, AJ, first off, thank you for having me on. I truly appreciate that. Um, I don't know. In middle school, which I know you're about to enter,
Mm-hmm.
the bug just got me. And I liked sports. I loved sports. And I started to have this fascination for creating videos. And in 2025, we call that content creation because
Yeah.
everybody's got a camera in their pocket. It's in their phone. You can edit on a computer. Back then, you have to understand that none of that actually existed. You needed to pick up a camera, put it over your shoulder. Then you needed to take that tape and put it in a VCR, put another, yeah, there you go, another tape and another VCR and do all the editing. It was a totally different format. It was much more difficult to actually get anything done. But for whatever reason, I really liked it. And I got fascinated with videos and sports and then sports videos. And if I'm being honest, I don't know that there was any time that I ever thought I was going to be the one sitting in front of the camera. Like I enjoyed just making the videos and sharing them with the basketball team that I was on. At some point, probably end of high school into the beginning of college, I realized maybe I'll try out this on camera part of it. So I always had the idea, kind of like you, of what I wanted to do, but I didn't know specifically where it was going to land me.
Did you, besides basketball, which you mentioned, what sports did you play growing up?
Played basketball, played baseball, played soccer. Probably should have stuck with soccer, being as small as I am. You met me in person a while back at
Yeah.
a Sharks summer scrimmage. Um, so I think that soccer probably would have been a better sport for me than basketball. But I loved basketball and I loved baseball. But by the end of my high school career, I realized that that was going to be the end of all my competitive playing careers. I was not good enough to make it to the next level. And maybe that's why I kind of pursued, sports broadcasting. And it was just another way to stay in sports and keep involved with something that I loved, like have that team element, that team atmosphere. I just wasn't good to play it, but was I good enough to cover it? So it felt comfortable. It felt like the right thing to do back then.
What were your favorite sports teams growing up? Like your favorite hockey team, favorite basketball team, favorite soccer team, favorite football team?
Yep. Well, I liked the way you said it earlier about how I would have been on YouTube if it existed when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Um, I would have been a Sharks fan since birth had they been around, but they only came around when I was, what, 10, 11 years old in 1991. And I actually didn't get to go to a Sharks game until 1993. So I was about 12, no, 11 or 12 when the Sharks bug hit me. But I had grown up going to A's games. Obviously, the 49ers were a big deal when I was a kid. Very successful. Bill Walsh, years and era, and Joe Montana, and names that you've probably heard about
No,
before.
I know them.
You know those ones. Yeah. I was actually named after 49ers quarterback John Brodie. I don't know that everybody knows that. But, so some connections to the 49ers. And I grew up in the East Bay, where I still live today. The Raiders did not exist. I think they moved in 82 back down to Los Angeles. So from 82 to 95, the years of me growing up, they weren't around. So the 49ers were the only football team here in the Bay Area. So I grew up with the A's. I grew up with the 49ers. I never disliked the Giants. I know a lot of people will pigeonhole me as being the A's guy for my, growing up at the Coliseum and covering the A's professionally for as long as I did. I've always admired the Giants. I think they've always had great teams. Obviously, won a bunch of World Series, had some very interesting characters and players, and I love their fan base. So I know they see me sometimes as a little bit of an opposition. It's never meant to be that way. I was aligned with the other side, but I've always respected the Giants too. And I should also throw in the Warriors. It's hard to believe, probably to you, AJ, but the Warriors were really bad
I know.
for a lot of years. And so when they kind of exploded with Steph Curry and Draymond and Clay and Iguodala and Kevin Durant came around, it was the exact opposite of what I grew up watching, which was
I
basically one or two good years of the Chris Webber, Tim Hardaway, Chris Mullin, Mitch Richmond era of Warriors.
yeah.
Those 1 or 2 years of good stuff. So I love the Warriors growing up, even though they never rewarded the fans around here back then.
Was there a broadcaster that you watched that got you interested at an early age?
That's a great question. I don't know that there was a sports broadcaster. I can't say I was young and watching like the local news, but there was somebody from Channel 2, KTVU in Oakland. His name was Dennis Richmond. He actually recently passed away. There was another news anchor named Dave McElhatton who was on Channel 5, KPIX. I don't know. It was a default thing back then. As much as everybody watches YouTube today, back then people watched the local television channels, and those anchors, those news anchors, just kind of had a comfortable feel in their presentation. They felt kind of natural. They didn't feel robotic. It didn't feel like they were reading off of a teleprompter the entire time. When you watch a television show, kind of the way when you watch something on a screen or on a phone, but back then watching something on TV was really inviting somebody into your house. And so that's kind of the era of media that I grew up in. And I think those two names and individuals, they just felt comfortable to welcome into your living room. And that's kind of what I always wanted to be in whatever I did in television once I realized that's what I wanted to do.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you had an internship at High School Sports Focus while you were in high school. How did that happen? And were you doing anything related at school, like writing for the school paper before you got the internship?
I think I was writing for the school paper. Like there was a journalism class. I remember the name of the school paper was The Olympian. It was Castro Valley High School. Um, I met a camera person for Channel 36, which had the show High School Sports Focus, while I was recording highlights of my own high school football game. Obviously, I wasn't on the high school football team, but I was at a game and I met somebody who was there for their work purposes. And I'll never forget, his name is JD. I still talk to him on a regular basis, pretty regular basis. And um, he gave me his card and said, "Are you interested? You look like you know what you're doing. You look like you're pretty excited about this. If you want, we do internships. Give us a call and we'll set it up." So, I mean, I did. I took the card. I called him. I visited the TV station, and by the end of that final semester for me of high school, I was driving down to San Jose as an 18-year-old. Was I 18? Yeah, 18 at that point. Maybe once a week on Fridays, maybe twice a week sometimes on a Wednesday and a Friday, to go down to the TV station to then go out with a photographer, go shoot a baseball game or a high school softball game, or sometimes a volleyball match, to learn how to use a camera, to learn how to edit, to learn how to write a script, and then to be there on Friday nights when we did our show live. So that was the internship for me is what opened the door to my first ever job in the business. And I guess that's kind of still how it works here in 2025. It may seem not fair that you have to either do something for free or for school credits or for the bottom, the minimum wage type earnings that you'll get doing an internship. But as some will tell you, it's the experience and the connections and the networking. That's the real value of, what hopefully is something you're doing for a short period of time.
And then how did you turn that internship into a full-time job?
You know what? I was there. I think being present is a huge part of it. Learning the skills for the job is a huge part of it. And the right timing of somebody else. I think somebody else had left. There was some turnover in these jobs of recording the games and going out with a big TV camera and the company car and driving out to, whether it was somewhere on the peninsula, somewhere up in the East Bay. For us, our studio was in San Jose. It was my first semester of college, actually, is when I got my first television job. So in high school, I was an intern. As soon as I got into college, I was an employee at Channel 36. And so it's really, again, it's being present, it's picking up on the skills and learning the skills, and then just having the right timing and opportunity. And those three things aligned, and they offered me a job. And it started like that. And then eventually it was, do you want to edit some more? And then do you want to try your hand at doing a report, like with you doing the reporting? And so it just kind of took baby steps from those very beginnings.
And can you tell me how the hosting job was offered to you?
I'd have to remember exactly the scenario, but it was similar, right? It was being present. It
Mhm.
was having the skill set to be able to host a show. And I can't remember the circumstances under which um, they offered me that opportunity. I think her name is Christine Nubla. Was somebody who worked with us. She was one of the co-hosts of that program, and I think she went on to do something else. And so there was kind of that opening, and the bosses and the powers that be, they considered some options they had. I think they looked externally, they looked internally, and at some point they gave me the opportunity to do it. And so I was very thankful for that. And as I look back, to give that role to somebody who, was only a few years removed from high school, I didn't have a ton of experience. Those are kind of the lucky breaks in reverse. They could have gone with somebody a little bit more seasoned, a little bit more experienced, but to be able to have that type of job, I got very lucky. But I think to some extent, you kind of have to make and force your own luck in those circumstances.
And then, was it a surprise when KICU unfortunately canceled the show? And what did the management tell you?
Are you trying to make me cry, AJ? Is that what you're trying to do here?
No, I'm not.
I know, I'm kidding you, buddy. Um, what was it like? It was a surprise. It was a huge surprise. In fact, I think you ask a great question. I mean, it's almost like you were there when it happened because I took it really hard. I got a phone call one morning. It was a couple weeks before Christmas, so December of 2007, I want to say, and it was out of the blue. That show had been around for 15 or 16 years, and you thought it would always continue. Our ratings were doing well. We had as many sponsors as we had ever had before. But I will tell you that in the business of television and media and old media, not YouTube and not people doing their own platforms and social media. I'm talking about old media like TV stations and networks. Sometimes they make these decisions based on budgets, just based on changing of the direction of wind. It really is that arbitrary sometimes. Um, but yeah, it was kind of a surprise that they were not only canceling the show, but that they were letting everybody go. And there was no other real opportunity for somebody like me to stick around. And so it was frustrating. And I'll be very honest. I think you probably know what a chip on somebody's shoulder is in life, right? Like you feel
Yeah.
like you were wronged, and you feel like you have something to prove, and that experience really put a chip on my shoulder for whatever was next. And I felt like I had something to prove from there on out. That can be a good thing if you harness that energy the right way, but it can be a bad thing if you let that chip on your shoulder, if you let that kind of destroy you. So it's a very fine balance to use that to your advantage, those feelings.
So, can you talk about the year between KI getting the sports focus canceled and joining NBC Sports Bay Area?
Do you know what I did during that year? I think you might know.
Yeah, I think because your LinkedIn profile said you were a certified flight instructor, but
You're scoping out my LinkedIn? I don't even know what's on my LinkedIn. I don't use I don't even use LinkedIn. You're right. I had a feeling the way you asked that you knew exactly what it was. I'm just giving you a hard time. You're doing such a good job. Um, I decided to just kind of let things settle down and go a different route. And um, if I remember this correctly, and if I'm being perfectly honest, my intention was to get a new television job somewhere here in the Bay Area. I knew that actually the job that I got, I knew that network, what was called Comcast Sportsnet, was going to be starting up soon. I think it was supposed to start in 2008, but they had some delays due to the recession, due to a lot of things that were going on, um, in the economy and everything in that time and in that, where we were in life. So it took a little bit longer than expected, but I was kind of waiting around for that job and that opportunity to happen. And during the meantime, I got into my other passion. This is the long way of getting to this. I always loved aviation, and right after I graduated college, I got my private pilot license. A couple of years later, I got my instrument rating. A couple of years after that, I got my commercial pilot license. And then in 2008, so right after the TV show got canceled, I went out, did all the training necessary, and got certified to be a flight instructor by the FAA. Then I went out and I worked at a flight school in Livermore. It doesn't exist anymore, but I taught people how to fly airplanes for basically the entire calendar year of 2008. It's a totally different diversion from my career path before, but it was something that I loved, I cherished. At the time, I can say this now and be perfectly truthful with it. I was kind of a little bit lost in my life. I didn't know where it was going to lead me. I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't know if it was going to work out. I didn't know if I was done with television. I didn't know if I would ever return or get back into that business. Obviously, I did for a lot of years, and still in it. So it was an interesting time of life. There was a lot of confusion, but in retrospect, I loved it. I met a lot of friends that I still have today in that 1 year of working in aviation. But yeah, that's the other side of me that not too many people know about.
Were you concerned you might not find a broadcasting job in the Bay Area when you were being a pilot?
Yeah, I was because broadcasting it's not how should I say this? It's not hard, but it's not easy. If that makes sense. Um, it, it-
Does.
you can make it a hard job, you can make it an easy job, but the opportunities they don't always come around as frequent maybe as you'd like. And the circumstances and the roles and the chances, the opportunities, they just don't happen on a regular basis. There's only a small handful of these positions, whether it's at a local TV station or in this case, the job I was searching for at the regional sports network. So yeah, and that was a main priority for me was to not leave the area. In television and the old way of doing things in old media, the way it was is that you got a starting job somewhere that maybe you weren't from in a small market, could be in the middle of the country, could be in a very remote part of the country, and then all of a sudden you take the next step and then you start working in San Diego and then you get another job in Denver and then you get another job in Seattle and then eventually if you're lucky enough you can come back and work in the Bay Area where you were from. I'd only ever worked in the Bay Area and I didn't really want to sacrifice that, nor do I still want to ever sacrifice that, to be honest. So I was very concerned that I would never get a crack at it again here in the Bay Area. At least, let me say this. I knew there would be a chance. I didn't know if that chance would actually happen for me or not.
So how did the NBC Sports Bay Area opportunity come about?
I kicked and I scratched and I beat down some doors. Persistence, it was a lot of persistence. It was calculated persistence because I think you can come off as maybe over aggressive and even annoying a little bit if you if you're too persistent. We all know that as common sense people, but when you really want something, you have to put yourself out there. Very fortunately, there was a man named Ted Griggs who was the general manager, and I think maybe even president was his title of of the network back then, and he gave me the opportunity to come in and get interviewed and set me up with the right person who was doing all the hiring. He was actually only familiar with me because he's a Bay Area guy as well too. He's got children. Some of them played lacrosse. Some of them were featured on High School Sports Focus, right? So now it all comes full circle of why, being around, being present, trying to maintain a good reputation and image, it matters because he knew me. I didn't know him. He knew me. So when I reached out, he said, of course I know who you are. Send me a demo reel and we'll get you in touch with the right people. No guarantees that we'll give you a job, but at least there was that crack in the door that opened up. And so that's kind of how that all started. And the other part about it is that when I was hired, it was not originally to host shows. It was they passed on actually passed on me for all of those opportunities. They hired 8 people, I want to say 8, 9 people to do all the hosting of the shows. I originally wasn't chosen. They kind of passed me by, but they said, we want to keep you in here and we want to give you opportunities and repetitions and roles, and we will give you those. So you're going to have to kind of work your way through this. And I did. I took a field producing job, which I did some field producing. I did some studio producing, but within a couple months, they threw me on the air. And then within a couple months after that, I was hosting shows and I signed a contract, and the rest is kind of history for 15, 16 years.
And can you describe the different roles you held there and how you progressed into each?
It's a great question. I started out doing a little bit of everything, but that was kind of the format of the network back in 2009 and 2010. They didn't really want anybody to settle in on a particular role, which I never really enjoyed that part. Covering 49ers one day, covering Raiders one day, covering Giants one day, covering Warriors the next day. I think you're best at your craft when you can kind of focus on one topic, one subject, be really good at it, and build that bond with the viewers. So eventually we transitioned into that format. But at first we had a highlight show, kind of a Sports Center-ish type show called Sportsnet Central, hosted that a bunch, did some reporting for that show a bunch. It was, I want to say, the first full season of Sharks hockey that I was approached. And I believe the question kind of went like this: hey, we need somebody to do our rinkside reporting on the broadcast, like on the game broadcast. Would you feel comfortable doing this? I was like, you mean cover the team that I've grown up watching since 1993? Yeah. Now, granted, I was getting ahead of myself. I'd never actually covered the NHL. I'd watched a lot of Sharks hockey, but watching as a fan and covering it to that level, I'll be honest, are two different things. So there was a little bit of a learning curve for that, but that's kind of how all those opportunities came to be. And then I would say for the last 10 plus years of me working there, it was mainly hosting the pre and post game shows for baseball with the A's and hockey with the Sharks. And I really enjoyed that. That's the most challenging job, I think, in the building, or was in the building. There's no scripts. There's no, I mean, you prepare, don't get me wrong, but a lot of times you're on the seat of your pants. How do I say that? You're on the fly, basically. And you're just kind of winging it as best you can. And so those are the tough shows, but those are the ones, the work and the challenge are what I enjoyed doing those shows.
And then the A's and the Sharks, along with the Sacramento Kings, went to become NBA Sports California, right?
Yeah, there's two channels. There's NBC Sports Bay Area, which had a bunch of different names over the years, and then there's the California channel. And you're right, the Bay Area channel has always been the Giants and the Warriors, and the California channel has always been the A's, the Sharks, and the Kings up in Sacramento.
And on your YouTube channel, you've touched on the difficulty of having to leave NBC Sports Bay Area. How long did it take for you to process what happened?
I'm still processing it. um, you know what, AJ? It was a place where I spent 16 years working. You know, when I started there, I was in my 20s. When I left there, less than a year ago, I was almost at my mid 40s. I met my wife at that studio. The night I had to rush into the hospital because our son was born the next day, I was at work doing an A's Royals game. He came a little bit early, just a couple weeks early. So, we were prepared, but I was work. So a lot of like big life moments happened for me. I met hundreds of friends and worked with hundreds of super talented people there. Spent a lot of my life, representing that network, doing thousands of shows. And so detaching from that and so quickly and without, I don't know, really the explanation of why this was happening or a really good reason of this happening. I think we can all digest that if something went wrong or I did something or, something was obvious of why this needed to happen. But that part never was maybe explained to me, as I've talked about before. I didn't have the answers to any of that stuff. So it was very difficult to have that end, and kind of what you mentioned before, the uncertainty of, will I find something else? Will there be another chance to work in sports here in the Bay Area? Or was this the end of it for me? Thankfully, I know now it was not. And there were some other job opportunities that I interviewed for and was seeked out to do. I also seeked out some things. I know we'll probably talk, I'm sure, about landing with the Sharks, but in terms of ending it with NBC, and I look, there were, I'm aware, first off, so many people reached out to me the day I made the announcement, which I appreciate. It warms my heart. I also am aware of a lot of comments that were out there on social media platforms and people coming to my defense. And, um, I can't heart everything
Yeah.
for one reason or another, but my heart felt all of those things, and I truly appreciate the support that people gave me during what was a very difficult time. There's no question about it.
And did you rely on your experience with KICU to get through it?
That's a great question. Do you really worked on this? That is very impressive. Yes, I think having gone through it before, it reminded me of a lot of things of how I felt when the road kind of ends for you. And I think that's why you see a lot of athletes who, when it's their decision to retire, they feel good about it. But when somebody else kind of forces their retirement and says, well, we're done with you, it's never a good feeling. You like things to end on your terms, right? And if I'm being honest, I don't know that I ever would have left my last job. But that's not the way it ended. They ended it for me, and maybe in the end, maybe that's for the best. That remains to be seen. We'll give it some years to find out. This may have been a great thing for me. I will tell you this: leaving or being let go by KICU and having the show canceled, I would have stayed there for many years, longer than I should have. So I don't know if that part is sinking in. Sometimes you need a kick in the shorts, like you need a kick out the door to get on to your next thing, because I'm such a loyalist that I may have stayed around at KICU. I may have been doing high school sports in 2009, 2010, if that show still existed, instead of moving on to something I loved even more, like covering the Sharks. And in the case of what happened with NBC last summer and into last fall, I would have stuck around at that network. But maybe the best thing for me that remains to be fully seen yet in the next couple of years was to leave there. So I kind of trust, you've heard that saying, trust the process.
Trust the process.
Yeah, I feel like I learned, to your point, which is a great thing to bring up and a great question. I think trusting that process back then and seeing it through helped me through this last time of what just happened between NBC and the Sharks.
Minus you got it kind of not like laid off, but like it canceled twice. Besides, it got canceled twice. It kind of reminded me of Kevon Looney, who
Mm-hmm.
just got like the Warriors didn't re-sign him, so he had to
Right.
go on to
Right.
a new chapter in his basketball journey.
That's a great point. A lot of people, I mean, you can call it a bunch of different things. I had a contract with the network, and that's kind of a thing for athletes. It's a thing for people on television with jobs like that work at networks. Once you sign a contract, that contract comes to an end. And at the end of that contract, it's up to both sides to get something together again. And so that's by nature and that's by design, and it's always been that way for a lot of performers and presenters on television. That it's same thing with an athlete. It's so that the team has a way to get out of the situation without firing a person. And look, when I talk to people, I say I got laid off. I guess I kind of did, but really, I mean, the very technical term of what happened to me, to your point, was that my contract was not renewed. And so I became a free agent, which now I can appreciate what a lot of athletes go through in their own free agency, right? When a team says, "Hey, great job playing for us this year, but we're going to move on. You're a free agent. You're on your own." It was kind of like that. So
So if it was like an athlete, Brodie Brazil does not get his contract renewed by NBC Sports. 2 months late, a couple months later, Brodie Brazil signed with San Jose Sharks.
somebody made that tweet that the Sharks picked me up off the waiver wire. They did an Elliot Friedman like a fake tweet that he didn't really put out. But yeah, you're right. And the Sharks kind of picked me up as a free agent. So it really was kind of like that. And It was heartwarming, to be honest with you, that a team that I had worked with for so long and covered for so long and loved even longer than that, that they would give me an opportunity to continue on a really good career path and trajectory and something that was familiar and comfortable to me.
And how did the opportunity with the Sharks come about? We might have covered it right now, but like, did they just say, "Hey, Brody, do you want to come with us?"
You
And were
know,
there any other jobs you seriously considered?
yeah. Um, Let me address the Sharks part first. In my talks with them about what had just happened, I've got a lot of friends that they're coworkers, and many of them are my bosses and bosses, but I consider them friends. And it was just an initial talk about like, hey, maybe we can work something out, and we feel terrible for you, and let's just talk about this. And I was like, great. On one hand, I didn't want to get my hopes up because I didn't know if we would all align on something that worked. Like, do you actually need me? Can I do something for you? Can I be productive? I don't want to have a job where I'm bad for you. I want to have a job only if I'm productive for you, and this makes sense for both sides. And so we had a lot of talks. We had a lot of meetings through the rest of the summer and into the fall. And at some point, we decided that, hey, January 1st, 2025, it's go time. And once I made that decision and we all hashed it out and we moved forward on it, it was a really, really refreshing feeling. Um, and it was presented pretty early. It was out there and it was considered for quite some time. There was another job that maybe I won't feel comfortable sharing all the direct details of where it was and who it was with, but there was another sports opportunity specifically that was out there. I did it the best diligence I could in trying to figure out what that job was all about, what they would need from me, what my life would look like, how it would align with maybe my career trajectory. And I just put all the pieces together. And fortunately, I just identified it as maybe something that wasn't the best fit for me of these two things. When I looked at working for the Sharks, I mean, that was always kind of like, icing on the cake. That was up on the trophy mantle of like, yeah, how could you ever say no to that? This other job was going to have to be really perfect and really special. And I checked it out and it was fine, but it just wasn't working for the Sharks and doing what I'm doing now. So, um, luckily I had options. Honestly, that was the most refreshing thing of all of this, that it wasn't zero things and it wasn't just one thing that I had to do. There were some choices and it allowed me to see, what was going to be so special about working for the Sharks.
Like a choose your own adventure book.
Wait, a what? I don't, I, this, is
Choose your own
this,
adventure.
oh, choose your own adventure. Okay. So that is something I've read to my son. See, I didn't hear you at first and I was worried that that was something that young people today know about that I'm too old to know about. See, I miss some of these things now. I don't get all the references.
But you know what a choose your own adventure story stuff is like,
I
right?
do know. No, you're right. It really was. It really was like choose your own adventure. That is a great way of putting it. So you're right.
So now we're gonna go through doing the job. So walk me through like a typical day during the season for you.
You know, I could tell you what my old job was like because I did that for so long. My new job, I've only done it for half of a hockey season. So, um, I will tell you that my new job has an off season, which, as you know, I'm in the middle of it right now, and that presents a different challenge of coming up with creative content when the players aren't around, when there hasn't been a game in several months, and you want to stay relevant. You don't want to keep throwing stuff at the fans that they say, well, we've seen this before, or that's not interesting. So far this year, I've done everything. I've featured some of the Sharks photographers and their best work. I've gone over to Sharks Ice and tried to feature a little bit of behind the scenes of what happens there. We obviously just recently had the NHL draft. Sharks had the second overall pick. So there was a lot of buildup to that. And then when it happened, and then development camp, and I did basically a month's worth of interviews within 3 or 4 days at the beginning of this month, here, July, that are going to last us on all the Sharks platforms throughout July. But then August, I'll have to figure out something else. So I don't want to give away what I'm doing, but I've got several different series lined up. So it's really a matter of season versus off season. The season is kind of I'll say this bluntly, and hopefully it's understood the right way. The season is the easy part. There's games and there's players available and there's a lot of things to talk about. There's always something new. In the off season, there's not always something new, so you have to really change the pace of it. Um, I produce basically a piece of content during the hockey season every day of the week, 7 days a week, and then here in the off season, we've dialed it back to 5 days a week. So I'm responsible for sending in something every single day that goes on YouTube, X, Instagram, all the Sharks channels, the Sharks Plus SAP Center app, sjsharks.com. It gets cross posted on NHL.com. So they try and utilize it everywhere they can. But again, it's a little bit of a pressure, right? Like you have to come up with something every day, a segment, an interview, um, something like we're doing right now. It could be remote, over Zoom or Teams or anything like that. But yeah, it's there's a little bit of pressure of it. Like I'm not doing shows right now, but I am doing content and a pretty hefty volume of it.
Yeah, I was looking at your YouTube channel earlier, and some of it was like Sacramento tired of Let's Go Oakland chants was I think your most recent video, and then Thunder getting some arena or Cardinals hosting fans on team playing stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my YouTube is separate from the Sharks work. And my YouTube is something that I started really started it maybe 6 or 7 years ago or eight, but I really started to put in more emphasis and work on it in the last couple years. It's grown in terms of the audience and views, and I don't know, I don't remember what the number was last year, maybe 12 million views, something like that. We passed 80,000 subscribers recently. I'm hopefully on pace to get to 100,000, maybe by the end of this year, maybe early 2026. Like all that stuff is great, but the real thing is that it's a good platform. A lot of people are on there. They're watching. The videos get shared. I don't live and die by the numbers on there. We've got some members on the channel. Those videos actually that you mentioned are members first videos, so they will get published in the next couple of days. But YouTube is great. It allows me to cover more of the national stories and the things that I was always unable to do working for a regional network and working for specific teams only. So it's kind of a side hustle. I'm not gonna lie, it's a separate thing. I don't put any Sharks videos on my YouTube anymore. I do my Sharks work for the Sharks. Um, it's similar, but it's also different than the Sharks work. It's content creation, but I put a lot more personality into it and I handle them differently. But yeah, YouTube has been very refreshing to be able to have a little bit of control over the situation and to, use my background in production to like make this home studio here. It's been fun. It's been honestly, I if it didn't exist right now, I don't know that I would be I don't know that I would be as satisfied with the media landscape at all, if that makes sense. I don't know if I would love doing sports media if it weren't for the existence of YouTube right now. Because like even our Sharks stuff, a lot of our work for the Sharks gets mainly seen on YouTube. So it is a great platform for disseminating your work and sharing your work.
Well, you also do tank talk, and I saw that you had chats with some of the Sharks players in a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, interviews are what people I think probably want from me the most, maybe with the Sharks. It's just because I've been interviewing Sharks players for 16 years now. So that's maybe where they see me most comfortably fitting in. And it's kind of one of the things I aim to do in working with the Sharks is that, they, as you probably know, they don't get as much coverage or media love as the Warriors do in our market, or the
Yeah.
Giants do in our market, or the 49ers do in our market. So these platforms exist. My skill set exists. And so I'm trying to use those things to give us, our team, and our players, the interviews and conversations that you normally wouldn't see anywhere else.
Is there a minimum number of content pieces you're supposed to do daily or weekly?
It's about one a day. I mean, like I was saying before, I'm responsible for And the idea behind my job, and I didn't really mention this before, but we basically we went through the process of creating this job that I would do that didn't exist before. So we're kind of a lot of it is on the fly. Um, but the idea and the concept was during the season, something every single day for a Sharks fan to watch. And then in the off season, pretty much every day, which is kind of how we've landed on this 5 days a week type thing right now. So that is kind of there is that bar set of how many pieces of content, whatever that adds up to be, if it's like 300 something pieces of content. But you know what? During the draft and that weekend, I think I had 5 or 6 things within 2 days, right? So sometimes there's more. Sometimes we go 3 days without something for like 4th of July holiday. So it balances out.
Where does your YouTube channel fit in the picture? Will it always be a side thing, or will you ever connect it to a job?
I don't know that I don't know that I want or need to connect it to the job. I don't know that they want or need anything that I'm doing on my YouTube channel. They're welcome to it if they want. I'm not that possessive over it. Um, I'll always like having this as an opportunity and a place to make videos and talk about the things that I want to talk about. And it's kind of like having your own radio show or your own nightly television program. It literally is that cool. And again, AJ, I want to stress this. Like when people ask me, how do you get to be a broadcaster? What are the things I should be doing? One of the very first things I mention is start your own YouTube channel. And even if you're really bad at it, that's fine. Don't even publish it, but start your channel. Make a video every day, every other day. Talk about what happened in today's Giants game. Sit here in front of the camera, give yourself 5 minutes, make, the 3 most important points you can make about what happened. And that's practice, that's repetition. And having a channel, I think for me, it's not anymore about getting better or practicing. For me, it's about growing a platform and, being able to monetize it and make a living to some small degree off of it, and have it reward you like that. But I think it's equally valuable for somebody beginning too. You don't need the TV station. You don't need the TV network anymore. You don't need all that stuff to at least get the work and the repetition in to get yourself better. So I think, again, I can't stress enough how special YouTube is. And so I will probably always, to some degree, keep that, in my arsenal, so to speak.
Is there a scoop interview or feature that you're particularly proud of or is memorable for you?
Yeah, um, in working with the teams like now I work for the Sharks, but even when I worked with the Sharks or with the A's for NBC, um, there were a lot of things that I was privy to. Like they told me this is going to happen, but I can't say anything about it, right? So it's difficult because I know, on this date, this news, a contract extension or whatever is going to come out. But like you're in the circle of trust, but I can't really share it, right? I'm trusted with that knowledge so that when it does happen, I'm ready to react to it. But I want to talk about something that happened when I was in the first year or two of working. And as I told you before, it was when we did all a bunch of different jobs. I was assigned one day in 2009, probably the spring of '09 or the summer of '09, to go out and cover a Giants game where they were pretty sure that Freddie Sanchez, who was on the Pirates, was going to get traded to the Giants. There was a lot of talk and a lot of rumors about that. So they said, Brodie, your job for today is to camp outside the Pirates clubhouse at back then AT&T Park, maybe SBC Park, AT&T Park, and cover this story if it happens. We don't know if it's going to happen. So I'm there. I meet Freddie's agent, and nothing's happening, and the game's over, and Freddie's packing his bags, and I'm like, all right, well, this is done. I'm walking out of the clubhouse. Hey, thanks for everything. He goes, hey, can you go back in there? Freddie just got traded. Wait, Freddie had just done his interview. Freddie thought he was traveling with the Pirates. It was their getaway day game. He's like, agents aren't allowed in the clubhouse. Can you go back in there and grab Freddie? Like, wait, so I'm going to tell Freddie that he got traded? I couldn't find him. I had a clubhouse. I talked to a clubhouse assistant who went and found him. And I said, he just needs to go see his agent. But then I told our camera person, hey, Freddie just got traded. He's going to come out here. He's going to do an interview. So we captured him saying goodbye, him hugging all of his teammates. He was on the Pirates. He didn't get on the plane. He walked across the hallway to go over to the Giants clubhouse. The game had ended. Most everybody had gone home. I interviewed him on the walk from the first base side of the ballpark to the third base side of the ballpark where the Giants clubhouse is. Got the first and only and real exclusive interview. He broke down in tears. This is a grown man, AJ, who just got traded from one big league team to another, was in tears basically by just what had just happened. And I was too. Like, I was very emotional watching this happen in real time for him. So I broke that story. It happened right in front of my eyes. I'll never forget that one.
That's nice to know to be the one that breaks the trade.
Yeah. Well,
And
I would say this though. Let me just say this as a piece of advice for young people. Breaking news and being the person to break that, fine. If that's your thing. Getting it right though, like being accurate with it and being sensible about how you deliver this information are way more important over the long term than being first, right? So that's just it comes with a little bit of a caveat. Breaking news is cool. Like great if you're the first, but make sure it's right and make sure it comes across the right way.
and I know that your Bob Costas interview was huge too.
Yeah. Did you watch that one?
Yeah.
You know what? I was sitting in this chair, um, maybe last summer. My phone, maybe just done with the video and goes buzzes. I'm like, okay, what, from a number I didn't recognize. And hey, this is Bob Costas and long text, right? Watching your stuff. Sorry about what happened with the A's. We've never met, but I found you on YouTube. Like, this is a prank, right? Like, would you believe that if you got that text? Do you have a phone, by the way?
I have a flip phone,
Oh,
but no.
okay, okay. So I gotta make sure I know that about you. But if you had gotten an email, right, or a message like that, and it said it was from Bob Costas, would you believe that?
I wouldn't. I would
Yeah,
think it would be a scam or something.
right, right, exactly. But um, so but I figured, hey, he's an NBC person. He probably and he did. He got my number through some NBC people. And so I texted back and said, hey, he said, would you like to talk sometime? I was like, would love that. So we talked maybe the next day for like an hour. And what I told him back then, this was yeah, late 2024. I said, hey, Bob, I'm going to take away like the great chat we just had. And I don't want to ruin this by asking you for a favor yet. So I'm going to wait a few months and then I'm going to ask you for the favor of coming on my YouTube channel. And so he's like, no problem, I'll do it. I'm like, great, but I'm not asking for that for now. I want to wait. I want this to settle in is how cool this was. But he was great. I ended up meeting him in person in February when the NBA All-Star game was in San Francisco. He was out here doing some coverage on it. I went out to the city, met him at the hotel. We had a nice lunch, great conversation. I mean, 2 hours like wasn't even enough for our chat. We could have gone on and on all day. So I can't tell you how much it means because it's not over. Like I was just texting him the other day while I was on an airplane flight. I can't tell you how much it meant for him to reach out and how much it means to me that he makes himself accessible just to chat. I'm sure if I ever had some real life or career advice that I wanted to ask, I'm sure he would give me the very best. He's already offered up some networking opportunities. And I'll be very honest, AJ, when young people like yourself reach out to me, this is the reason why, like, what he did for me is why I've always been in the mode of if somebody asks me to be interviewed, like I remember what Bob Costas has kind of done for me, I want to return that favor to the next generation. And so I hope you are already seeing that for yourself 10, 15, 25 years down the road.
No.
You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
you pass that on to somebody else who wants to interview you in 2045.
Yeah, I think I would
Yeah.
be willing
Yeah.
to help.
And
I mean,
you'll feel
you
confident about your skills by then and you'll feel like you have something to give. You've got some experience and you've got some seasoning to pass on to somebody else who could use that advice.
you know Shea from basketball?
Do I know who?
Shea, Gilgeous Alexander.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. SGA.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
will sign autographs a lot because he was one of those people that were always asking for people's autographs. So,
It's a great comparison. Yeah. if you've been on the other side of the fence, so to speak, of like, like I don't know how those people do it over there. And then you become one of those people, you always want to make sure that open up the gates, right? You want to make sure that you are accessible and look, I can't satisfy every request of somebody who wants something, but for the people that like yourself, I see what you're like. You've prepared for this so well. You're grinding. You're doing your thing. People will probably look at you and say, "Oh, like it's cute, like a young kid who's wanting to do this." But like you're not just showing up unprepared. Like you are really focused on this. So I sense that, and that's why I want to, like I said, pass this on to you.
Well, thanks for telling me that.
Yeah.
It's a good piece of advice.
Just don't take my job in 20 years, okay? Like just give me a little bit of time to
Okay.
can I retire first and then you can have it?
Yeah, you can retire first.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Sounds good.
So, as you gain more experience, how would you say your approach to the job has changed, if at all?
Um I think this is something that I learned a long time ago, but that I remind myself a lot. You can get just as much done by working smarter. You have to work hard to a certain degree. But I do think that as you get older, you realize how to make things better without putting in as much effort. And it's not that you're trying to be lazy by putting in less effort. That's not it at all. What you're trying to do is like a distance runner. You're trying to pace yourself so that you can last that 26 is it a marathon 26 miles 26.2 mile marathon. You are trying to endure for the long term. And so I think of all the things I've learned, there's a lot of small skills. And gosh, if I watch an interview that I did even 5, 10 years ago, I'll look at it and cringe and say, ooh, that was awkward. I wasn't as good maybe as I think I am now. And 5, 10 years down the road, if I'm watching this, I'll probably think, oh, why was my voice so squeaky high? What was, whatever. um, but I think to me, the biggest the biggest thing I've learned is how to pace myself and how to get more work done with a little bit less effort, conserve some effort so that I can last longer in this career and so that I have more energy to put in multiple places. Let me also tell you that I've been a father now for the last almost 8 years. That has totally changed the responsibilities and energy levels of my life. So you really do have to, as you get older, you have to pace yourself in this job. You can't approach it like you're 27 forever. That's just not going to work.
Uh, How has social media changed the way you work? If it has changed it.
A lot, a lot. And I think, I'm not going to be the old man, play the part of the old man here in this conversation, but when I was getting into this job, AJ, there was no social media and it was all television. And, that job was done a certain way. And quite honestly, even like a chat that you and I are having right now, this like podcast style chat, people never did this. Like whoever's watching this on your YouTube channel right now for as long as we've chatted, there was never a program where two people would talk for 50 some odd minutes as we have been so far, right? So social media has offered new opportunities, new ways of doing things. I don't want to say you don't need the old TV stations and networks, but the flow of information happens a lot quicker. Stuff gets outdated a lot faster. The pace of things it's really hard to answer this question only to say that it has dramatically changed almost everything about old media. The new social platforms have kind of toppled old media. We saw that coming. We knew it was coming. It happened. And I think if you're looking at it in reverse right now and saying, well, has it happened? Like, then of course you missed that years ago. It has already happened. I don't know how many young people are watching the nightly news anymore on a television station or listening to like an AM radio. Do you know what AM radio is? You probably do, right?
I don't.
Yeah. You don't?
No.
You don't know what AM radio
No,
is?
I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So you know what I'm saying? Like there are old platforms that just don't make sense anymore. And so these social platforms and look, YouTube is one of them. They're so valuable for the next generation. You have to be forward thinking.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna ask you a question you asked with Bob Costas.
Uh-oh.
Is it a good time to be in the business with old media or new media?
It's a difficult time to navigate things, to figure out what something's going to look like. I remember the question I asked Bob, and that's a great one for you to ask me. Um, you know what? It's hard because um, there might be more opportunities to do things by yourself, like me and the YouTube channel. Like that exists now. I can do that. 10 years ago, I don't know if there was an audience big enough that YouTube existed, but I don't know if the audience existed on YouTube. Um, it is a good time, I think, but you have to be the right type of person who is ready for a change of pace. If you're going from old media to new media, it should create more opportunities for you. It should be a good thing for you, but you have to be a versatile enough person to make that switch. And old media, you have to talk a certain way. You have to talk like like you've been broadcasting for years, and you probably have to wear a suit and tie. When you're on new media, you still have to be professional and presentable and responsible, but you have to be versatile. You have to know how to edit your own material, how to probably use your own camera, how to set up lights in a home studio, all of those things. So it is a good time if you are the right person for the job.
Then the last question for the doing the job part
Mm-hmm.
of this episode. What's the most rewarding part of your job?
I can't. I don't want to say this as if oh, people watching your material and commenting on it. That's that's not it. Like it's not. I'm not doing this for the attention. I'm doing this for the reaction of people who genuinely appreciated, learning more about I'll use all the Sharks players, for example, a William Eklund, an Alex Wenberg, a Yaroslav Askarov. When I do an interview and they say, I didn't know that about that player, or I'm so glad that I saw this interview. I'm just trying to create something for a certain demographic of fan and people. And when they say, I'm so glad that this happened, or I saw this, or you did this, again, it has nothing to do with, it's not the egotistical part of, oh, I saw myself on, it's just the opportunity to present something in front of you that hopefully you enjoyed. I think that's the rewarding thing. And you know what? On old media, you can't watch a television screen and tap hearts on it. Doesn't work that way. But on screens and on phones, you can. And I think that two-way feedback is part of what I really appreciate. So, and you know what? When I meet people in real life, it's one thing to get a comment on social. It's an even better thing, and I'm sure you'll find this out someday. Somebody will stop you at a hockey game or in a parking lot, or wherever, the grocery store. Hey, AJ, I know you. I watch your YouTube channel. You do great stuff. I really appreciate it. I watch a lot. That means the world to me. And again, has nothing to do with the egotistical side. It has everything to do with your work is valued and your work is appreciated. Simple as that.
And so now we're gonna move on to the Sharks. So how would you sum up the Sharks season just now, and what were your key takeaways, both positive and negative?
Well, 32nd in the league in the standings, so that it speaks for itself. But that's the outsider's view. If you look at the Sharks record, if you were around it like I was, if you saw it like I did, if you watch anybody who watched the Sharks this past season saw growth, saw the ship starting to turn around the right way, and obviously a big part of it is Macklin and Will Smith, but another cast of I don't want to say a subcast of characters, but a whole nother layer of character between a Colin Graff, between a Shakir Mukhamadullin, between a Yaroslav Askarov. I could go on, but we're starting to see the waves of talent come in and the high draft picks that are going to play out really well. And hopefully Michael Misa makes the team this year, and maybe Sam Dickinson will be on the Sharks this year. You're starting to see things formulate really nicely. So how did last season go? It was rough. It started really rough with a lot of losses, and it ended really rough with a lot of losses. But the only thing I think moving forward that they have to really do is make sure that they give young players the experience they need, and also to never be satisfied with, like, more losing is going to happen this year to some degree. I hope it's not a big degree, but you always have to make sure that you hate losing, right? You can never let that slip in and think, well, we're expected to lose, so it's fine if we do. You can't feel that way. And I know they don't. So as long as that hate of losing continues and the growth also continues simultaneously, it's only a matter of time before they're back doing what I covered them doing, which was making the playoffs every year and making runs for the cup every year.
So you just mentioned Misa. So as you know, the Sharks drafted Michael Misa with the number 2 pick. Do you think he will be in the lineup this upcoming season?
I know they like him, but I also realize it's very rare and it's very difficult for somebody who just got drafted to crack an NHL roster in the season after, right after they were drafted. So I would say that, are the odds against him in that happening just statistically based on everybody else? Of course. But he's a pretty special player. And I think he's probably already at that skill set of being able to make the team. I think I don't want to speak for any coach or any general manager. You'll find out that you don't ever want, you don't want to be the voice. I would say I feel very confident he's got a very good chance of this happening. Not guaranteed. I would say the odds probably sway more likely that it happens than it doesn't. But I don't know how it plays out. Certainly for him, I hope that if he's ready for it, that the opportunity is there for him.
And how about Sam Dickinson?
He seems like he's ready to me. I watched him in development camp. He moves his feet. He's confident. He skates confidently, shoots and moves the puck. He's got the right attitude. If he thought he was ready last year, which I'm not saying I don't think he was, but I think, and he did pretty much everything you could ask of him in this past OHL season, won basically every every cup, every title, every award. He did it all. So I think he's ready. I think based on even some of the moves the Sharks made and even the Thrun for Ryan Reeves trade, I think that probably spells out that there is a slot for Sam Dickinson. All he's got to do is go and win that spot. He's got to win it still, but there is a spot for him.
And when do you think the Sharks will be a playoff contending team?
Oh my goodness, that is that's the number one question, internally and externally. I'll just say this. I would love to see the Sharks this year flirt with the standings and be in the race and be just, hey, we're 8 points out of a playoff spot. Great. Have that. Just have a successful season. Maybe get on the winning side of a record this year. My hope is that by not this season, by next season, was that 25, 6, 7, 26, 27, that it's a lock, right? That it has to happen that year. If it happens this year, I'd be surprised. I'd be thrilled. I'd be all of the above. It's still a work in progress. And these things do take time. So this is going to be an interesting building, hopefully a bridge season to what lies ahead 2 years from now. And that's just my prediction. I'd love to be wrong in a very good way, if that makes sense.
And now we're gonna do a couple questions about the Oakland A's.
Oh
Well,
boy.
now Sacramento.
Oh boy. Go ahead.
So when do you think the A's will move to Las Vegas?
I mean, it's a large question, and I don't know that all the answers are out there in terms of, is Las Vegas happening? I mean, there's a construction site, and there's some cranes going up. There's some dirt being moved around. Until there's a stadium, they're not playing any games there, and maybe until there's money and a plan for the stadium, there's no stadium. I think Sacramento for 3 years minimum was the idea. Maybe it's a fourth year. Maybe that's how they get it done. Maybe they spend 4 years there and then they move to Las Vegas. It's really hard to know. I think the only thing that's guaranteed is that they will definitely be playing in Sacramento for this year and probably 2 more years, whether people love that or they hate that or they don't care about that or people show up or they don't show up. That's where I think they'll be for 2 more years.
And when do you think the A's will be a playoff contending team?
Well, if the rumors are true that they're shopping Mason Miller and Brent Rooker right now, they could very well lose 100 games again this season. They're kind of like the Sharks in that rebuilding mode, except for the fact that the Sharks, have better picks and higher prospects and whatever, way deeper pipeline. The Sharks are fostering that and are growing those they're growing those seeds into something mature. The A's, as they've done a lot of times over and over again, they'll take those young prospects and they'll flip them for even more future picks and prospects. So, um, hard to know. I mean, we might be witnessing another flip of the A's again here in late 2025. We'll see.
And now we're gonna move into personal questions.
All right.
So, what can we find you doing when you're not working?
I'm mostly working all the time. I've just picked up golf during this first off season I've had in a forever long time. Um, I'm a dad. Spent a lot of time with my son. Summertime, a lot of pool time. I try and take care of him as much as I can. The downtime, the off hours, parenting. Maybe you'll find out, or maybe from your parents right now. It takes up a lot of an adult's time to have children. So, um, parenting, golfing, try and get some vacations in. That's pretty much it. I may have told you a different story in my 20s. More hobbies that I had time for. I don't really have time for. I keep it pretty simple and straightforward.
And how did you get into flying?
It's a good question. You know what? Out of college, I was interested in it, and I told my parents I want to take flight lessons, and the deal was this: I'm just going to take it until I don't like it. It's expensive, right? And it's a pretty big commitment. You got to spend a lot of time and energy and focus. But the idea was, hey, try a lesson, try 2 lessons. If you don't like it, just stop. And I never stopped. And I went from private license to instrument to commercial to flight instructor to instrument flight instructor. So just found something I loved and stuck with it. There were no pilots in my family, nobody close to me, no mentors really, nothing built in. It was kind of an odd fascination to have, I suppose.
What is your favorite book?
Um, I okay. Fun fact: I do a lot better listening to audiobooks than I do physically reading a book. And a part of it is the time management. I just don't have the time to sit down and look at read a book. So I listen to audiobooks while I'm doing things. I listened to a book about a year ago called The Hail Mary Project, which I just found out they're turning into a Hollywood movie that is Ryan Gosling starring in it. The Hail Mary Project was a fun book. I don't want to give away I'll try and summarize it by saying somebody on Earth is tasked with going to outer space to save Earth. It's by the same author as The Martian, but a really good listen.
And with favorite show?
Um, my wife and I binge so many different shows on between Netflix and Hulu and HBO Max and Apple TV. I'll probably say I'll probably say Bridgerton. I really like Bridgerton, and my wife does too. We all the streaming shows. We watch them all. We zip through all of them. No, I mean like Game of Thrones was a great show, and I could name a bunch of them. But in the last 4 to 5 years, like pandemic after that, we watch a lot of those streaming shows, and so. But Bridgerton was a recent favorite for sure.
How about any like sports shows? Because I heard like Quarterback, a new version came out.
You know what? I used to like sports television more when there was a show called Real Sports on HBO, and they did journalism of sports, and they covered stories, and they spared no expense in traveling and doing interviews, and I like that type of sports programming more than the new age studio shows of 3 people yelling at each other and who's the greatest quarterback of all time, and let's have that argument right here, and this is why you're wrong, and blah blah blah. It gives me a headache.
Yeah, did
So yeah. So I'll be honest, I tune into sports programming just to see what other people are saying, AJ, but I don't know that if it's my own free time, if I've got nothing better to do, I don't put it on just to put it on. I put it on if there's something pressing that I want to follow and cover, or that I need to do a little research on and hear what other people are saying, but I generally don't just turn any one particular thing on. So I know that's a weird thing for you'd think somebody like me to be saying, but that's really the way it is.
you know how Alex Ovechkin passed the all-time goals this year?
Yes.
And you know the First Take ESPN show?
Mm-hmm.
They, the people on that show, started arguing more about like who's the greatest ever or something more than congratulating him.
Right. You make a perfect point. That's basically what that new format of sports has become. And apparently a lot of people watch it or they're interested in it and they love the Stephen A. Smiths of the world or even, a Pat McAfee show is a little bit different than that, but it's a different world out there than it used to be. So I'm okay with that. But I try and bring a little bit of the old school into the new school.
And what's your favorite food?
Ooh. I've always loved Mexican food. I've always loved Italian food. Um, but I'll tell you, the new one in the last maybe 10 years is Indian food.
Ooh,
Just, it's a lot, because I feel like there are a lot of similarities. By the way, I've also become a vegetarian in the last 8, 9 years. And Indian food offers a lot of meatless products
yeah.
that are really good. But I feel like the connection for me is there's a lot of similarities between Indian food and Mexican food. Different spices, different preparation, different presentation. But still something that tastes so good that can burn the heck out of your mouth. Like maybe that's the common thread. But I'd probably narrow it down to those three.
No, I come from some Indian descent, so
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know like 30% of India is vegetarian, so
Right.
you
Right.
go
And
to,
so it makes sense for me to be, like it works with my food preference.
if you go to any restaurant, Indian restaurant, you're gonna find a vegetarian option.
Exactly. What do you like? What kind of Indian food do you like?
Um, well, I like bread a lot, so I
Yeah.
like naan,
Yeah.
I like a lot of Indian food.
You-
It's
What
gonna
you
be,
have, you have a non-issue. Get it? A
huh?
non-issue? Get it? No, no, never mind. Just to play on words.
And following up from favorite foods, how about your favorite dessert?
Anything chocolate, to be honest with you. Tiramisu cake, peanut butter chocolate, like Moose Tracks ice cream, you name it. Peanut butter and chocolate is a great combination for me.
Join
Also,
my 4-year-old brother.
I also like birthday cake flavored anything too. It's outstanding.
And if you could travel to any place in the world right now for free, where would you go?
Well, I'm hoping to do an European trip with my wife. It's been a long time since I've been out there. Our 10th anniversary is coming up. But I've been there before. The real places I haven't been to that I'd like to go, a lot of spots in Asia, Japan, Korea. People talk a lot about Thailand. I have to do the research on exactly like where specifically I'd want to stop. Hong Kong, I don't know. But I that general vicinity of the world, I have never been, and I'd love to, as well as Australia and New Zealand. So I would put those maybe near the tops of my list. Places I haven't been that I'd like to go.
Also, I'm telling you right now, a lot of the Asian, like Japanese, Korean, Thai, Vietnamese,
Mm-hmm.
etc., Chinese, they have a lot of meat and fish in them
Uh-oh.
in their meals.
So I better be careful out there, huh?
Yeah. Also, you're gonna have to live off of ramen in your Japan stay.
I'm okay. How do you think I got through college? A lot of ramen, buddy. You'll see. You'll find out someday.
No, we're planning on going to Italy next year, and
Cool.
mom's always joking like if you want to go to Italy, we're gonna have to live off of ramen the 2 months before. Cup of noodles.
Yeah, well, because that Italian food's gonna be heavy, buddy. You gotta get some workouts in. Well, you don't, but somebody my age, I do. Otherwise, Italian food every night is gonna sit uncomfortably. I'll leave it with that.
And I most recently interviewed Shang Peng, who is a beat writer for
Yeah,
Schwartz. And
yeah.
this next question stumped him a lot. Let's see if it'll stump you.
All right.
If you could meet any person, alive or dead, who would it be?
Oh man. You know what? Since I've watched the play Hamilton like so many times, and I've got to see it in person maybe 3 times, I think I'd be interested to meet Alexander Hamilton. Do you know what I'm talking about? Hamilton, the musical?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a name of history that I was aware of, but after watching the musical, I'm like, you are fascinating. And I don't know that he'd be my buddy. I feel like I want to know more about him and his time and his struggles and everything he went through. So yeah, I think that's a weird one, but off the top of my head, I wanted to make sure I wasn't stumped. I guess Alexander Hamilton.
Okay. Now, if high school sports focus was brought back, would you want to host it?
I think if I'm, out of no disrespect to the format or the idea, it just wouldn't fly the same anymore. Kids don't watch television. They'd rather that be on a YouTube channel. But I also think that that was a chapter of my life and something that I did and that I had a lot of fun with and I learned from. Um, if the right situation ever came around again, maybe, but I can't explain how content and satisfied I am right here, right now. It's hard to even fathom anything else than kind of where I'm at and what else I'm already doing. So the answer is probably a kind no, but I had a lot of respect for what, that job did for me back when.
And last question
Mm-hmm.
of this whole interview, what
All right.
advice would you give to up and coming broadcasters?
Consume a lot, consume as much as you can. Try and see how other people handle situations for both good and bad. Start right away, as you're doing, right? You have your own YouTube channel, you've got your own social media. Um, Pretend like you're already doing the job you want to do. Pretend like somebody's already paying you to do this job. Work at it, get your repetitions in, uh, do as many interviews and YouTube shows as you can. Repetition is super valuable to you. And you know what? Networking is important and keeping your eyes open for opportunity. All of that matters. But I think to start doing your own thing as soon as you can is only going to help you down the road. Yes, you need a college degree, and yes, you need an internship probably somewhere, and yes, you do need a paying job eventually to support yourself and living situation, whatever. But basically, to answer your question, just start doing the work already. Don't wait for somebody to tell you it's time. You just get going on it yourself. That's the number one advice that I would give to somebody getting into business.
Okay, so that was all the questions I had for you, Mr. Brazil. So thank you again for joining me.
Thank you for having me. And AJ, you can always call me Brodie. Mr. Brazil is my dad, and he's not here right now. So
Okay. Okay, Brody.
thank you, buddy. This was fun.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.